Thanks for listening to That Great Mank Pod. Please do us a massive favour and subscribe to this podcast. And if you can, leave us a review on iTunes. Both are a massive help, enabling us to promote the people and the great causes we champion to a much bigger audience. If you want to get in touch, give us a follow on Twitter at Great Mank Pod and drop us a DM. Cheers.
You're listening to That Great Mank Pod, Greater Manchester's community podcast. Top one, our kid.
For the listeners, can you tell us who you are and maybe a bit about where you're from, where you grew up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 54, right. And I grew up in Sale, lived in Sale all my life, just round the corner from where I am at the moment, at Crossford Bridge, Sale United Pavilion, and the Trafford Veterans Hub, which is fantastic. I left school in 85, 86. I wasn't very academic. I preferred doing metalwork and sports, and science was my thing. And I ended up getting a job with an apprenticeship with Shepherd Construction.
Right.
And I, at the age of 17, left home and went down to Norfolk to the Civil Engineering College. I did a couple of months there and then came back home and worked as an apprentice site engineer for Shepherd's. I worked on a couple of big construction jobs. One you might know is the Novotel in Worsley.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was just a flat bowl when I turned up, and
some dodgy deals done in them over the years.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So I was not like 2-3 years into my apprenticeship, and my foreman at the time on a Friday afternoon, he was up on the top lift, 3rd floor up on the scaffolding, and I'd left my jacket up there, and the minibus was waiting to take us there. And I went, "John, chuck us my jacket." So he walked out onto the loading bay of the scaffolding with my jacket, and as he put his hand on it, went to throw my jacket down, he came with it. Oh. And I'm stood there, which one do I catch? And he just creamed in straight in front of me. And I'm like, oh my God. And I took a bad turn from that, and I ended up being in construction. And then I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. A couple of mates suggested, come to Wind Up Records in Trafford Park, vinyl wholesalers. I worked there for about a year. And I'd also worked at Altrincham Ice Rink as a refrigeration engineer.
Right.
Dead man's shoes. The old boy that used to do it, Morris, he died, so I took his job.
Yeah.
Did that for a while. Didn't like getting up early in the morning. Ended up getting sacked because Joan Slater, who was teaching the ice dance, liked her ice nice and dry at 6 o'clock in the morning, and got a chance. See you later.
Yeah, you weren't compatible. That's what they say nowadays. You weren't compatible.
Yeah.
We had artistic differences.
Yeah. And then I had another job then, and it was 2 pieces of plastic with a hole in each end, and I had to put them together, put them on a spigot, and press a pedal, and it would put a rivet in there. And I turn it around and do the other end, and that'd be one done. Get the next 2 up.
Yeah.
Turn it around. I lasted 3 days. Yeah. So then application for the army went in because of my construction background. Obviously, the engineers, Royal Engineers, or nothing at all. And passed the test, the entrance test, flying colours. And I said, I want to go into the Royal Engineers. And the sergeant says, right, well, you have to sign up for 9 years. I thought it was 3, 6 or 9. He says, yeah, well, we're short of engineers at the moment, so we want a commitment off you. 9 years. Oh, yeah, no worries. So I signed up for 9 years.
How old were you? How old were you at the time?
I was 20. I was a late entry, as they call it. And the funny story is, this was the careers office in Manchester, on the back near Piccadilly. I can't remember the name of the street now.
Fountain Street.
That was it. Yeah, Fountain Street.
Yeah, that was the big Army careers office, wasn't it?
That was it. Yeah. So about 11 o'clock was my appointment, and I'm panicking at home, sort of like 10 o'clock, thinking, I've got to get to town. Mum, could I borrow your car? So yeah, no problem. So borrowed the car, parked up outside, no problem. Went in, swore my oath of allegiance, my attestation, managed to get heirs and successors and not hairs and successors like the previous people who went through before. He says, at least you got that right.
Good start.
Yeah, and then you get your first day's pay. Which
really?
Is, I think, yeah, and then it was £8.20 I got.
So, where did that go?
In the Shakespeare across the road.
Well, I'll tell you what, I came out and went to get back in my mum's car, and there was a parking ticket on it for 12 quid.
Do you take that as a sign now?
That went in the glove box. Found it about 2 years later.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So that's me joining up. I joined up, then went to do basic training, which was done down in Chatham in Kent. Wasn't Chatham in Kent. It was Gibraltar Barracks in Camberley in Surrey. So you do your basic training, and then you wait a little while, a couple of weeks, and then you do your combat engineer training, which is about bridge building, mine laying and clearing, and all the good bits of stuff, not the normal square bashing on the square. And so after that, I went to my first unit in Swinton Barracks in Parham Down in Tidworth,
right?
Engineer Regiment. And my first tour I went on was a tour to the Falkland Islands, where we were building a swimming pool.
What year would this be then? So this would
have been 1990. I think the Gulf War kicked off not long after we came back. Because we'd just been away, we couldn't deploy. I was in 8 Squadron, 3 Squadron deployed. I tried the hardest to get a deployment, but they weren't having it because I had no trade yet.
Yeah.
So anyway, got down to the Falkland Islands, and because I hadn't gone through Chatham, where you get your trade training, whether you're going to be a bricklayer, a carpenter, a blacksmith, or bridge mech, or a refrigeration, heating, air conditioning engineer, as I am, I hadn't done that yet. So I was sort of like just a dog's body, basically, a troop sapper. So I ended up getting put in the signals wing, and I was doing shifts. I was doing a day, a night shift, and then like a day off, a working day. But these days off, I was at a bit of a loose end if I'd had my head down in the night time. So I used to book flights for our troops going out around the Falkland Islands on tasks, where it was construction or a jolly or whatever. So I was in communications with Flight Lieutenant Fitzpatrick at Heliops on a regular basis. And after a couple of weeks, I got to chatting with this guy. And he says, well, when you have your days off, just turn up at Heliops in the morning with your overnight bag in case we crash or whatever, and your sleeping bag and some food. And you just have a round robin with the helicopter. And I thought, oh, that's nice, gets me out for the day. So I turns up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and there's some of the the troops, and they're going off doing various tasks around the islands. And this is in a Chinook, by the way.
Right, yeah.
So I'm sat in the back of this Chinook, and he's weaving about, doing some like aerobatics, just putting it to the test. And then we'd drop off. We did about 4 drop-offs on various little islands and inlets and lodges and places around. Sometimes it's supplies for some of the farmers that live out on the little islands as well. People going on fishing trips. So we get to this furthest island away, west of the Falkland Islands. It's called New Island. There's one bloke lives there.
Right.
And I ended up doing a task on there later on. But we landed there, and our guys got off with some timber, and we're building a shack for this guy. And the loadmaster approached me because I was just sat there with my arms crossed on my own, like in the back of the Chinook. And he went, come on. I says, what? He says, come on, up to the front. So I climbed into the cockpit, and he said, right, there you go. On the left, there was a spare seat in the front. So I was sat down in the front of this Chinook.
Wow.
And the pilot, who sat to my right, he says, right, don't touch anything, just sit there a minute. So up he went, and off we went. He says, right, you got your feet on them pedals, yeah? You got hold of that joystick between your legs, yeah? He says, now, to the right of you, there's this other little lever here. You pull that up and down and twist it. And he says, you got that? And I went, yeah. He says, right, you're flying, mate. I went, wait.
Oh, the good old days before health and safety.
Yeah, so 20 minutes, I'm flying this Chinook. skimming down and pulling up, getting the feel for it. It only takes a couple of minutes, and you're like, oh wow, this is easy.
Yeah.
This.
Yeah.
And then we get to this little island where we were collecting some of our guys after doing a task someplace. And as the helicopter lands, the tailgate drops down, and I'm still sat in this pilot seat. Some of the Royal Engineers from my troop come piling in the back. They're all watching the loadmaster. Right, you sit there, you sit there, you sit there. And then I'm there, and I turn around and sticks my head out from the hatch, going through the fuselage, going to the back. You should have seen the face on him. Like, oh, well's wrong. Look, now it's not every day you join the army to be a Royal Engineer, you end up flying a Chinook. So that just made that tour for me, basically.
So how long were you in the Falklands for?
I think it was a 4-month tour at the time. Yeah, 4 months. So when we went back to Tidworth, it was probably a year. I think the Gulf War was on then. Yeah, the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
So we were all getting jabbed up, even though whether you deployed or not, you were given anthrax stuff and all sorts of chemicals. Yeah, I got kitted out with all the gear, all the desert gear, and desert boots were a shortage. They could not get desert boots for love nor money. So I ended up giving my pair away to another guy that was deployed. And I ended up going to Chatham then to do my trade course, which is refrigeration and air conditioning. It's like 14 months in a classroom doing higher degree level maths. It's just mind-blowing stuff. Yeah. Gas laws. Not going to go into that. It's a bit. So from Chatham, I did that course, and then I went back to my unit. I think did I go back there? I did my class 1. Or I can't remember now. Anyway, I came top of my course, and as my reward, it was to go to South Georgia Island.
Right.
So it was back down to the Falklands again. This is straight from Chatham. This before I get to my posting in Germany, because I'd been UK based. And anybody who joins up, when you come out before you finish training, they ask you, "Do you want to go Germany or do you want to stay in UK?" So decide, depending whichever you say, you always get the opposite. So every lad that says, "I want to go to Germany," ends up in UK.
Does that sum up army psychology?
Yeah, it's where you go where we need you. They say. So I ended up going down to South Georgia, and it was like a flight to Ascension, another flight down to the Falklands. Spent 2 nights in the Falklands on the Lash, and then it was on this boat, which was a flat-bottomed RFA, Royal Fleet Auxiliary vessel. It's a logistics supply vessel. Now, because it's got a flat bottom, it doesn't ride through the waves like a normal ship. It goes with the waves in every direction. And you go through the Southern Ocean, which is the roughest ocean. And anyway, we steams it down there, no problem, 5 days on this boat, just being thrown around. And sticking your head over the side. Looking at the whales, the pods of whales, or porpoises, and blue whales, right whales, also all these whales just all around us.
Wow.
And then the sea turns pink because you're sailing through a bloom of krill. And all these you see quite a few shipping boats down there, Japanese and the Russian trawlers, and they're all just gathering this krill in. So I get to South Georgia, but there's a detachment of Royal Engineers with a medic or 2 medics attached and about 3 or 4 signallers. And we have a doctor. One of them's a doctor. And our task there is to maintain the buildings and secure the place and look after the postmaster. We have one person who goes down there to be harbour master / postmaster. And that's his job. Basically, he will do 12 months down there as a stint, looking after our territory. And our job also would be to take him out to some of the the fishing trawlers to collect a check off them. They'd have to write a check for £45,000 or whatever it is to fish in our waters. So we'd go and escort him onto these ships, make sure he didn't get hijacked or mugged or whatever. But the experience of South Georgia, it's hard to explain. You've probably seen it on David Attenborough's documentary, I think, Walking with the Penguins. It was on not long ago, actually. It's quite a recent one. Well, on South Georgia Island, there's an old whaling station, a Norwegian whaling station, which shut down, I think, in the 50s, probably 60s, when it actually... And now it's just like rack and ruin and rusty. It looks quite scary, actually.
Yeah, I bet.
And there was a couple who lived on a little tiny dinghy, a little boat. They lived on this little boat there called Tim and Pauline Carr, and they've circumnavigated the southern hemisphere a few times in this little boat. And honestly, it's no length, probably 10 meters, tiny little thing. You know, it's crazy. They should be in the Guinness Book of Records. But they set up the museum down there. They were curators of the Whaling Museum, so you can go in and they'll show you video clips and tell you the history of it. And
Shackleton ended up there, didn't he?
That's right. So where our building was that we lived in was a 2-story building, wood timber frame. To the left of that and up onto the King Edward Point, it's called, is Ernest Shackleton's grave.
Yeah.
So we used to go there and pull the weeds out and put some little flowers on it and tend after it and give the stone a scrub.
Oh, that's nice.
You know, it's quite humbling seeing that and knowing his story and seeing the film Shackleton, you know, how he went back and rescued his blokes and come back and then ended up dying there.
Unbelievable,
Unbelievable, yeah. But the main thing that will always stick in my mind there was we had a mountain leader with us. He was a Royal Marine and he was off his head. Risk factor didn't exist. He would just do it. So we went up this mountain in the snow, ice axes, crevasses, all tied up together. And we're at the peak and we think, oh, what a view. You can see around over the islands and see all the other bays around and think, wow, this is fantastic. And it was time to go down. Yeah, we could see where we were going, but there was no path. So he just jumped off the side of this bloody thing. 200 foot straight down, bang, into snow, soft snow. We had to follow. What a rush that was.
Wow.
Just going off you can't see the bottom where you're going. You just got to go for it. You know, it's worse than bungee jumping. At least you know where you're going.
That's what you call peer pressure.
That was scary, yeah. But he must have wrecked the route on the way up, knowing, you know, well, we'll come back down that way. But we didn't know that. So that was a nice surprise. And then another thing that will always stay in my mind is we took the boats across to a glacier on the other side of the bay. And you see these, when it calves and these big chunks of ice fall, come off the glacier, and then the waves come. So we're bouncing, all these bits of ice is falling off this glacier. And we get to the other side, and then we have to jump out the boat, dry our feet, and then get ourselves together. And then we had a 1.5-day trek through this sort of valley. But because there's nothing around you, it's like you're on another planet.
Yeah.
You know, you could have been on Mars if it wasn't green, but it was just rocks and they were all flattened. So at some time or other, there must have been ice on top of where we were. It must have been a glacier bed that we were walking along. And then we went up over this peak. We camped over one night, and then the next morning got up about lunchtime. We arrived at where we were going. This place called St. Andrews Bay. And we come over this peak, and then you look down, and there's this bay, and there's like millions of penguins, king penguins. And I'm like, oh my God, you can hear them before you get there. And the stink, they do smell it.
Well, we eat fish, mate. But...
Yeah, and they just poo all the time. So you go down, and to get towards where the penguins are, there's the beachmaster, big elephant bull seal and he's big and scary, and he's got his harem there around him.
Yeah.
And on the documentary that David Attenborough did, he was stood where I was stood, to see him stood in the same place. And
Yeah.
but I was there like 20 years ago, and he was there like only a couple of years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And he started walking through because of the penguins breeding cycle, in the colony, you will have penguins at every stage throughout their life.
Yeah.
So you get the egg, and then you get the little brown fuzzy things that look like bear skins.
Yeah.
And then you get the fully fledged grown penguins, and then you get leopard seals coming up, eating penguins on the surf. Fur seals, you think, yeah, they're nice, like sea lions. Fur seals, no, they are very vicious and territorial, and they will come after you. And if you can't run fast, they will have you. And they've got massive teeth on them.
See, Attenborough never tells you that, does he?
Yeah, and they bark at you and chase you. Yeah.
Yeah, you never see Attenborough running down a nice float here.
Yeah. See, he's got people behind him with guns.
Yeah.
Tony, one of the things that's amazing is this, that you're a local lad from Trafford, seeing these incredible things, and most people wouldn't even know if they walk past you in the street, mate. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing that really struck home is when I was there, where the beach was, and then you have this mass of penguins, and then there was a glacier at the back. Obviously, because that was then feeding into the beach off the glacier. There was like a river separating down the middle as that was melting. Now, when I was there, it was sort of like 200-300 yards back from the beach. Now it's like half a mile back.
Yeah.
In 20 years, I've seen it recede that far so much. It is real. Honestly, global warming is real. And I've seen it, in my own eyes. And scary, tell you.
So I was just saying, so you would have been, early 20s.
Yeah.
There, seeing that.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, at the time, did you really, really appreciate that as a wow? Or is it looking back on it now where you think, I can't believe I did that?
A bit of both, I'd say. I was in awe when I was there.
Yeah.
And now I think, wow, I actually did that. And oh my God, that glacier's gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was.
Tony, you were telling me the other day when we was chatting something that really fascinated me, but you took it for granted about the working on the internet before the rest of us got hold of it.
Yeah, I'll tell you about that. So when you join up and you're a bit of a loose end and they don't know what to do with you, and you're a young private or a sapper, you'll end up working in headquarters as a runner. They'd call you. So you'd sit there in the corridor on a chair in a comfy room with a kettle or whatever, and then Sergeant Major or a clerk or an officer would shout, "Runner!" So there'd be a couple of you, 2 or 3 or 4 of you. You jump up and then run to the office, stand salute, take this to the quartermaster. He'd hand you an A4 envelope, and then you'd have to run to the quartermaster's, which is like a mile across the other side of barracks. So you leg it down there and you leg it back, kept you fit. But that was because there was no, they only had standalone PCs. You could type a letter out, but there was no communication other than telephone and sending a memo via runner. And then you'd have obviously your external mail. So it then go to Mill Hill and then distributed to go to other units. So I was lucky to be in Germany at the time, and we were getting kitted out with a thing called DII, Defence Information Infrastructure. I think it's gone now anyway. So, it's legacy stuff anyway. So that was fantastic because I was involved with a guy who was right into his IT, and my regiment were away, the majority at the time, So as they were rolling this out, the offices were left empty. So what they had to do is put new infrastructure in, and then put the servers in a secure location under headquarters, and then run all the cabling, and then put all the taps, the terminal access points. So we said everywhere there's a telephone, we want a computer with intranet, as we call it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was involved, and then once that was installed, we then had to teach everybody how to use it. So not everybody was PC IT literate in them days either.
They're not now.
So, no, they're not now. So then I had to set up. We had a theatre, so I used to get a load of guys in at a time and teach them the basics of using Outlook, how to set up their mailboxes, how to do their contacts, address lists, and how to empty the mail, do a signature block, and the basics of turning the PC on and turning it off. They knew how to do that. And that thing that slides out is not a cup holder, tell them that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then I stayed in that sort of realm for quite a while. But I got injured in my early days of joining the army. During basic training, I got injured. We were doing ambush drills, and I was in the back of a 4-ton truck with a couple of sections of us, probably about 16 of us, so 2 sections, in the back of a 4-ton truck, going through the woods. We hear gunfire, so the truck comes to a halt. Tailgate goes down, so you're there, you're getting all your kit you've got with you to go to war, sort of thing, full marching order. So you're carrying all your kit, you've got your weapon, you've got your helmet. So you all stand up, turn to face the back of the vehicle, and now I'm still doing my chin strap up. I've got my weapon over here, and I'm doing something down here. So I'm not ready, but I get shoved out the back because everyone's shuffling.
Yeah.
You don't climb down, you just jump, and you've got all this kit on. And I ended up getting shoved and landing in a pothole sort of thing, and my hips went forward and my shoulders went backwards. And I thought I'd snapped me back in half big time. I've seen stars and everything. I passed out, and my corporal pulled me over the side. Said, "You're all right, you're all right," and then gave me some nice tablets. And I was all right then. It took the pain away. I'd straightened myself up. But the next thing then, I'm digging 10-man battle trench. So I shouldn't have been doing that. I realise this now. But, you have a trauma like that to your back, you shouldn't be doing stuff like that straight away. You should be resting and then progressively getting better. So, yeah, that's marred the rest of my career, that has, basically, having that happen to me. And because it didn't sort of raise its head until a couple of years later, I thought, oh, yeah, I've got a bad back. But it wasn't. It was all from that. It catches up on you. You're jumping off a 10-foot wall or whatever with your gear on a combat fitness test, or carrying your mate on your shoulder. Your back's hurting, you're wondering why.
Listen, most of the guys I know who served, and well, don't know so many women personally, to be honest, but most of the guys I know who served have got bad backs.
Yeah.
And it's all that continuous trauma on the back, the weight, the pounding and stuff. Yeah, pretty much to a T.
Doing 8 miles every morning with a log or jerry cans or a stretcher with jerry cans on or something every morning, 8 miles up and down hills.
Well, that's why me and Damien don't do it. Even you talking about it just makes me tired.
Oh, honestly, what I used to do physically wise, I am a mate, but I was fit as a fiddle.
Yeah.
I did trampolining from the age of 4 till 15, 11 years of trampolining 3 times a week.
Was that professional as amateur?
Well, in them days, we had a school of excellence, and I joined the British squad and went training with them once a month. We go up to Carlisle or Birkenhead. And international competition was not really, because of the travel and stuff and the expense. We weren't funded or anything. It was all out of our own pockets. So in them day, all right, you go to Scotland and do the Scottish Open. I came second every time, and that's why I left, basically, in the end.
Who was coming first? Can you remember the name?
I do. There was 2 of them, Carl Fuller and Stuart Matthews.
Right, well, if you're listening to this,
Yeah, well, they went on to be world champions. Yeah, they went on to be world champions.
All right. Well done, lads.
and then after that, they gave up the trampolining and they became aerial skiing. You know, the hot dogging they call it.
Wow.
Aerial aerobatics on skis down the slope. They did that quite well. And I got taught yoga and stretching by Brian Phelps. He was one of our coaches, and he's the Olympic gold medal diver that we have.
Yeah.
Brian Phelps. Yeah, he was one of our coaches. With me carrying this injury, I was what they call home only, not Northern Ireland, which means you're either in Germany or you're in UK. I wasn't deployable operationally wise, although in 2000, when was 9/11, about 2002, the whole of the British Army went to Oman for a massive exercise.
Yeah.
So they took me along, and I ended up coming back, getting air medied back. But yeah, so I started off in UK. I did South Georgia. So I've been in, I did Chatham, my trade course. I ended up having kidney operation, got put back for a year, time off, and then finished that. I then went to Germany, and I went to Hamelin in Germany, where the Pied Piper comes from.
Yeah.
As if everybody knows the story of the Pied Piper. I'm not going to tell it yet.
We'll save that for another podcast, Tony.
Yeah. I met a girl when I was in Germany, and I ended up not staying in the barracks. I was an older soldier. I couldn't be doomed with living in the block with the other guys, so I like a bit of peace and quiet when I finish work. So I ended up living out with her, and my next door neighbour was a guy called Siegfried Zacher, who was the Pied Piper himself, and he did it for about 50 years.
Really?
And he's been all around the world telling the story to little school children of the story of the Pied Piper, and he'd have all his gear on and play the instrument, and fantastic. What a bloke! He played the accordion and all sorts, and he liked to.
Right. Well, another time we're having a podcast on the pipe. My nights out with the Pied Piper. It's
the real life of.
Yeah. So I was there a few years, and then there was two regiments in Hamelin, one in the centre of town, and then there was the barracks I was in, Zuntelstrasse, on the outside, on the edge of town. And they ended up giving the barracks in the centre of town back to the Germans. The lease had expired. So they moved my regiment to Paderborn. But we were given the option, do you want to stay in Hamel or go down to Paderborn? So I opted, because I had a girlfriend and a son at this time, to stay in Hamel. So I then got cross-posted from, it would have been whatever squadron it was, to 2-8 engineers, which are the amphibious engineers. We have the big M3 rigs that splash into the river and open up and drive tanks across, their speciality. So I ended up staying there. And then because I was broken and medically downgraded, I ended up getting all the jobs that people who are non-deployable have to do, which is either working in the sergeant's mess, the officer's mess, corporal's mess. I've done all three of them. And you're either then in the guard room doing barrack security. So I ended up as provost staff, looking after prisoners. So I went away and did my course looking after prisoners. And then I would do the admin and looking after them. But we had a restricted license. We had to have a door open policy. So we had to have a guy guarding them. So getting prisoners was a nightmare just for us logistically. There was only like 2 RP calls. So you're either on shift or off, and you just rotating around just because some guys messed up waiting to go to Colchester. And then I'd escort them back to Colchester.
Oh, right. Okay.
So we'd do a round robin. We'd get a hire car or a van, minibus, and get the detainee, and drive all the way back to UK, go Eurotunnel, then up to Colchester, middle of the night, drop him off, turn around and come all the way back. So, yeah, I did that probably about 15, 20 times. Yeah.
What fascinates me here, Tony, and again, when we was chatting the other day, when people think of the armed forces, it's like they only think of the front line. You know, you're either a soldier and that's it. But there's such a massive infrastructure.
Oh, yeah.
And range of jobs and you know, without those guys, nothing had ever happened. Do you know what I mean?
Another important one was postal NCO. I did the post as well. You know, so
the post historically has always been massively important, hasn't it? You know, and treated as so by the army. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, letters to and from home is the absolute lifeline, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to go on to that point is because I've done the physical mail of it side, and then later coming up to I ended up spending most of my career in Hamelin under two different regiments, and I was there till 3 years before I finished in 2011. So till about 2008, probably about 15, 16 years I was in one place.
That's unusual, isn't it? Yeah,
it's because I was broken in their eyes, you know, and I'm always good at what I do. I always give everything 110%. That's probably why I'm broken, you know. Bit of OCD, you know, I like to do things right.
Mate, that's a, you know, that's a pretty decent gift to have nowadays.
It's a good trait to have, yeah.
Yeah, of course it is, yeah.
Yeah, so
anyway, I'm just thinking after all that time, so you signed up for 9 years originally. You ended up doing what?
22
years.
22 years and 21 days.
But after being all over the world, seeing the things you've seen, when you come back, right? So you come back to the lad from Sale returns sort of thing. What's that transition like? What's it like on, you know,
your
mental health, on your way you feel? You know what I mean? How do you that reconnection? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, very difficult, very difficult. I just wanted to say about another thing about the mail before I answer that.
Of course, yeah.
So my last posting was to Hona, which is Bergen-Belsen, the concentration camp is, which is quite an eerie feeling when you first get there, and you have a tour around the memorial of the graves, and in Belsen, it's quite an eerie sort of feeling. And the barracks themselves were used during that time as well. The buildings are still there. In regimental headquarters, there's like a mortuary slab in the basement. You know, you're like, oh, stuff's gone on there. You know, and there's graves spotted around the barracks, the camp itself, Bergen, Hona. But this was then the time of Afghanistan. So the regiment's gone away, and I'm working there as what they call an application specialist. I was doing communications and software that runs, can't say any more than that about it. And I was also doing the communications side of it with the DII, the infrastructure, the mail system, and the intranet as we had. I made all the pages, the intranet pages. I made all the file structure. I created all the accounts for everybody. I was like the webmaster. So
webmaster! I love that phrase. Yeah, I love that phrase.
Yeah. So I would get emailed photographs and letters to families, and then I would have to edit them and then upload them to the Royal 3-2 Engineer Regiment homepage. So the families could have an intranet login and then log in and then have a read of what the guys are up to out on the ground. It's news from abroad, passing on, you know, their thoughts, and everyone's all right. And
that's massively important.
Oh, of course.
Massively important.
Yeah. There is some stuff that comes across which you can't divulge because of operational, purposes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to vet everything and structure it right, but it's the army again. I'm using Microsoft front page, HTML. So yeah, not like you use the web these days and create web pages.
No, been there, mate.
Yeah,
been there.
Yeah. So yeah, that was another job I had. That was up until 2000 when I finished. So then I finished. I decided my partnership with my son's mother had broken down years before. So I was single again, basically. So I had a house in Germany, which I ended up just walking away from, the mortgage and everything. I just walked away. The bank, I never heard from the bank again. They must have just sold it. I think they sold it to the guy who lives next door, actually. My son, who still lives there, said, "Oh, the guy next door's bought your house." So, yeah, I just walked away from that and drew a line under it and thought, right, I'll start again. So I went to Thailand for a year because my dad lives there. And I just had a girlfriend as well. We set up a shop in the local village where my dad lives. My dad's like the king of the village because he had a swimming pool and lots of land. Probably the only two-story house around there. A lot of them were still in them days. There were still wooden huts on stilts, So yeah, I did 12 months there. And my visa ran out. I could only get a 12-month visa at a time, multi-entry every 3 months out of the country to Laos. So you go over to Laos or Vietnam, get your stamp on your visa and come back in again. And yeah, my relationship with my missus there sort of fizzled away a little bit because she knew I was going and she started moving stuff back to her family and stuff. So yeah, I ended up coming back to UK with like a rucksack with some clothes in, and that was about it. Nothing else. So my mum didn't want to put me up. I did for a couple of weeks. She said, "Yeah, you can't stay here any longer. You need to go find your own place," which is right. So I get myself put on the housing list, and they're offering me places on the racecourse estate, and which had a bad name at the time, or Partington, which was out of the way as well. And it just didn't really work out or sink in that I'd be stranded over there or there with. So I was stuck, and my Uncle Pete took me in my old dad's in the family house there. But I stayed there a few weeks, and I ended up looking for a flat myself, and then I ended up needing money to pay for the deposit and the rent. You have to put a month's rent down. So then I reached out to the British Legion, who then also, on my behalf, spoke to the Royal Engineers Association. So I ended up getting about 1,500 quid together in total in donation from them for my rent and bond. So yeah, I got my first flat, and I wasn't working, so I was getting job seeker allowance or whatever. And then I got myself into work, which was not a nice job. It was monitoring secure CCTV from around the country, using old equipment again that wasn't fit for purpose. It was just 12-hour shifts. Yeah, 2 days, 2 nights, and 4 off. And on that 4 off, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'd go and get myself a bottle of whiskey. And that would be me then, last me a day. Next day, I'd go and get another. I'd down that and then spend 2 days recovering before I'm back on shift again. And that was just a cycle like this for weeks. And it was not good for my health. And then one day I walked in still 3 sheets to the wind and told me, "You can stuff this job. It's no good. I don't like it." And walked out. Yeah. And then I had another job working for a company called Luxury Leisure. And that was in Manchester Piccadilly Gardens. There was an arcade there, slot machine and gambling machines near the bus station. It was there. It was owned by a big family that owned half of Piccadilly Gardens. The name of them now. Anyway, it was then bought out by a German guy who owns Luxury Leisure, and my job was senior technician. I've never worked on gambling machines before, but because of my skills, transferable skills, picked it up pretty quickly. So I was left there with a guy who was legacy, had his job ring fenced, and he'd been in there years. He knew all the machines and all the quirks and things that go wrong with them. And he was spent more time chatting to the punters, and I would get the machines cleaned, polished, serviced up to spec. So over a 6-month period, I was doing the daily maintenance and the repairs and troubleshooting. I enjoyed the job. It was with the pub, meeting the public, some dodgy characters that you get in arcades.
Yeah, mate, I know that arcade really well.
You haven't been in, have you?
Oh, yeah, I have.
Bad place. Anyway, so I ended up having a review after 6 months, and the guy turned around and said, "Oh, you've missed this, you haven't done this, and you haven't done that. I'm sorry, we're going to have to let you go." What? Yeah, sorry. So I'm like, here we go, start again, look for somewhere else now. So as I'm plodding out the door with my chin down here, the guy who took me on, who hired me, he's an ex-Royal engineer. He's based up in Newcastle. He came down because the big boss was coming over to look at these new machines we just put in. And he said to me outside, he said, "Sorry, Tony, but we have to let you go. But we've just took on an arcade down in Hastings, and I know it as well. It was a right dump." He says, "We just took on this arcade down in Hastings. I can give you a job if you want to go down there and move down there." How does that work out? You're sacked, but I can give you another job down there.
Yeah, there's always ulterior motives, mate. It's almost like it's planned, isn't it?
Yeah, so, that knocked me back a little bit. I thought, oh. And then I'm doing nothing for a while. And then my old boss from my last posting, Captain Chapman, Chappie, if you're listening, hello. He works for the co-op, and he just Facebooked me and messaged me. He says, "What are you up to?" I said, "Not a lot." He says, "Do you know anything about compliance?" And I went, "No, but I will do tomorrow." So I went and had an interview, and I got myself into the co-op. We're in corporate doing facility management. Great job. It was sat at the computer desk, and I was just searching through records for certificates for asbestos or electrical safety certificates, fire safety certificates for buildings to find out when it had its last such and such inspection, or whether it had one at all.
That transition back into I was going to say normal life, but it's not
Civvy
normal,
life,
is it?
Civvy life.
Yeah, civvy life. And you've been taught to do things properly, and you're part of a very clear structure and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, but then when you come back to civilian life, it's not like that at all, is it, mate? Well,
when you've got a line of things that need to be done, because you always talk about weak links, don't you? It's certainly in the services. It's like when you say, why would someone, when you've got things exploding and everything, and you say to a group of infantrymen, right, go and take that hill. They don't go, "Oh, hang on, mate." It's that kind of I'm doing that. By doing that, I'm playing my role, and ultimately somewhere down the line, that is potentially saving somebody else's life, making someone else's life. It's that real consequences. Now, listen, there's always it's a very complicated story when you start talking about work life. But for me, wanting to do the right thing is never wrong.
No.
And the consequences are invariably not fair. No. And it's how you kind of move on. I mean, the difference you will make being involved, because you're now the treasurer of veterans. So the difference you will make. I think to yourself, because it's a great organisation.
Oh, you know what? Right, I didn't answer your question about how I came to Trafford Veterans. I was beginning of the year. I was in a really bad place. I haven't worked for since 2018. I could not face going through an interview. I couldn't even search for them. I wouldn't know what to do because my disabilities, I've arthritis in my hands, facet joints knackered in my back. I have needles in there doing radio frequency, severing nerves. Periodically, I have that. I have massage every fortnight, deep tissue massage with a nice Thai lady. She's probably about my age. It's nothing like that.
No, I never said it was.
Nothing like that. No. Not to say I have before somewhere else, but yeah.
No, sorry, carry on, mate.
No, but I have. No, the doctors have seen me, surgeons have seen me, consultants have seen me, and they're all like scratching their heads. And I'm like, look, I'm in agony. I'm broken. And they're like, yeah, you are, Mr. Williamson. You're worn out. It's wear and tear.
Yeah.
And I'm 54. How can I be worn out? Goes to show, don't it? Working in construction and as a Royal Engineer, building bridges and running around like a stupid bugger.
No, mate, but I think that's the one they use.
But coming to Trafford Veterans, I'd heard about it through Job Centre Plus. My work coach had mentioned them, but they had an open day last year. Unfortunately, I couldn't make the open day because I was visiting my father in Thailand. But when I came back, I asked my work coach if he could send me the details through, and he did. They had a flyer made up, and he emailed me the flyer, and I thought, oh wow, it's only round the corner.
Yeah.
At Crossford Bridge. I used to play on here as a kid. I flew my first kite on here.
Yeah. That my first bottle of cider.
Yeah. And
oh dear. So
no, but I heard about them, and January I was in a really bad place because I'd been put on this medication. I thought was for my back because my facet joint had locked out. I was crawling off the ceiling, muscle spasm, didn't know what to do, screaming. I phoned not the emergency one, the other one, 111, is it? And I got triaged, and the ambulance people spoke to me, and they says, "Well, there's nothing we can do for you." I wanted an injection to release the spasm, which I would have got in Germany. Don't forget, I've spent all that time in Germany. They'd come round and give you an injection. There you go, you're fine.
Yeah, very practical.
Here, because you pay for it there, you see.
Yeah.
But here they don't. We don't just inject people like that. I'm like, well, you should do. You'd help them out a lot better than having to go all the way to A&E to have an injection stuck in you. Why not do it? So you can move. Doesn't make sense to me that. Anyway, the doctor phoned me up about an hour later, which by this time I'd put an ice pack on it to try and release the spasm. And he said, "Well, Mr. Williamson, what were you doing?" I says, "Well, I was just getting the condensation off the inside of my windows. It was January, and all my windows just fogged up. So I had a squeegee on a pole, so I'm just stood there and I'm moving my arm up and down to clean my window. And then I bent over to pick a piece of paper up out of my printer. That was under my TV, the printer. And as I stood up, that's when it went. And this doctor says, "Well, Mr. Williamson, you should know better." I'm like, I'm having doctors and my physio and surgeons say, do exercise, stretch, do movement, to help yourself, keep yourself active and moving. And then as I picked a piece of paper up, the doctor said, you should know better. I'm like, I was so angry. I didn't know. What brought this on, I think, was the pregabalin I was taking to enhance the tramadol I've been on for 10 years.
My dad takes that. He's got myeloma.
Right.
That's a strong pain. Well, it's nerve endings, isn't it, and stuff.
Yeah. It enhances the effects of tramadol because of tramadol I've been on that long. It enhances the effects of it, and I ran out, and the pharmacy to you I was using for delivering me meds couldn't get hold of any at the time. So I thought, it'll come in the post, it'll come. And I didn't have any for about 10 days. And I didn't know that it was affecting me here. I went into a right dark place. I just cut myself off from the world. I wasn't suicidal. I just didn't want to know anybody, anything, do anything. I just procrastinated watching sport. As long as I'd have a drink of Vimto, but I didn't eat. I lost weight, all that stuff that goes with it. And it was when this doctor said, "Oh, you shouldn't have been doing that. That tip pressed my switch." I was so angry. And afterwards, I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm not like that normally. I'm not. I'm dead placid and mellow. What am I doing? Shouting, saying that? I need help." So,
mate, that's the first knowing that you need that kind of help and support.
Yeah. So then I came here one morning, shortly after, and popped my head through the door and, "Hello, troops. I'm a Royal Engineer. I've come to join you." And it just made me feel so welcome. And, do you want a brew? You'll sit down. You all right? What's your backstory sort of thing? How you doing? We're here for you. He's artillery. He's artillery. So a couple of drop shots. So it was that banter was there straight away. That was missing. The camaraderie and listening to the other guys' stories, whether they were out in Singapore, in India, or on whatever ship it was. It was just nice to hear again. Thinking, I'm back.
You see it in your face, mate. Just now, I mean, obviously, no one can see it. I can see it in your face since you started. She said, I mean, obviously, it's a really tough story up to them, but as soon as you walked in, you can see it in your face. That's what people miss, isn't it? And that's what they do a really, really good job of there.
Yeah,
it's been welcomed, it's been listened to, but the key one, and you said it there, is banter. Now, no matter for me, no matter what you're going through, no matter what traumas and stuff like that, it's having that. It's a dark sense of humor, trench humor, isn't it?
It is, mate. Yeah.
I've seen it in prisons.
Schadenfreude.
I've worked with squaddies and stuff.
Expense.
Yeah, but what I mean is I think that's very northern and very mank as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're laughing. Do you know what I mean? And once I know you're struggling, mate. I know you're in pain. You've got those things challenges that you're coping with.
Yeah.
Having a laugh
helps.
Somehow helps that, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose I can get a bit repetitive times when I'm talking to my mum, like, "Oh, I'm fed up with this," or "I'm fed up with that," or "This is hurting, that's hurting." But she does the same back to me with her ailments as well. So we just bounce off each other. I'll go for a walk around the park, for a bit of exercise. "Oh, that's hurting. Oh, we'll get some of this on it. We'll get some of that on it."
Mate,
I was actually laughing. I didn't interrupt you before, but when you said that thing about the doctor said it's wear and tear.
Yeah.
Same thing happened to Paul last week.
Really?
Yeah.
Sorry, mate.
No. Listen, I was out with my mates on the Friday. We've not seen each other for ages. And everyone thought it was just like, oh, he's just a little quit. But honestly, we spent the first 2 hours going, "What's wrong with you? Well, this isn't working. That isn't working. That's broke. That's hurting. That's ulcerated. That's lacerated."
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like,
I seen your omeprazole the other day on your table, David.
Mate.
Same one, 20 milligrams. So
there's a whole raft of different medications.
I'm on 5. I've cut them down to 5. My tramadol, I'm weaning myself off slowly, gradually.
They never did me any good, mate. They used to make me feel awful the following day.
Yeah, you have to keep taking them. That's the thing. You can't.
It's terrible, isn't it? Because, like you said, you're not sure sometimes if whether it's the medicine that's making you feel down.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll honestly admit, I'm on sertraline. People wouldn't believe when they see me. They always say I'm confident, I'm this, I'm that. Because of my health conditions, and because of the pandemic and stuff like that, I ended up going to the doctors and bursting out crying about the way I felt, and I've ended up on sertraline, and it's the best thing I did. I
heard of that. I'd have to Google it. I don't know it.
Well, what I mean is, it's we all need help sometimes. Whether it's medication, whether it's counselling, whether it's that's
something else. Yeah, that's something else that Trafford Veterans provided for me. They got me in touch with Veterans Welfare to try and sort out my army pension, because I got promoted years ago because I didn't do a junior NCO's CARDA because of my back and downgraded. I ended up getting my Lance Corporal given to me by the Colonel at the barracks. I was doing such a gleaming job. Congratulations. I was getting to that age where I would go over the age limit for promotion. So that went on, and I got my full screw given to me later on in the years. I wore it for about 4 years, and then I ended up going back on a course, and the manning officer said to me, he says, "Oh, Court Williamson, you need to give me that tape back. You haven't done your junior NCO's card." What? I was downgraded. I'm downgraded. How can I do that? But you should have done it many years ago when you're not having it. So I'm disputing that now. I wore it for 4 years, and the job I was doing for the last 2.5 years was a warrant officer's job. I was representing the regiment in meetings with international companies, doing all that web stuff and all the secret communication stuff. But I still got paid as a Lance Corporal for it, which is not right, really. Because the guy sat opposite me is getting like 3 times my salary, and I'm doing all his work.
Well, listen, jobs worth, don't matter who you are and what you do. There's plenty of those. But it's good that you've got that support network. Wherever I don't care where people find. I don't care how men especially talk about the mental health. Don't care how they do it, where they do it, or why they do it, as long as they do.
Yeah.
Because men are just not, especially men of a certain vintage like us, are not great.
We don't like opening up, and we don't even like going to the doctors.
Listen, we all have bad experiences going in to see him. I've had them, Damien's had them, you've had them, but more often than not, it results in as hard pressed as the NHS is, and they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but there are plenty of people in there that care. But the thing that I've noticed, since we've been doing this with Damien, and it goes back to the fact that you're from Sale, you moved back to Sale, and literally over the road was an organisation that is giving you so much. Yeah. So much back. But you put a smile on our face telling us about, explaining about, the I was going to say dolphins. You didn't get, not the dolphins, the penguins. You can tell I'm not very nature orientated. But that's
seals.
But that's a memory that will stick in my mind, and that's just come from having it, and that's what we want from people to listen to this. We want them to know first and foremost that if they're in Trafford or maybe even the surrounding area, that and they, not necessarily if they need the support, if they want that camaraderie, then Trafford Veterans is there.
Yeah. And we're not only military.
Absolutely. Well, you tell me, explain to me.
Like police, nurses, ambulance service. If you were frontline service or supporting your community, you're welcome to come here. We'll give you help and advice and a cup of tea or and a shoulder to cry on or whatever. The doors are open. Got Fridays here, 12 till 4, and I came down. We get chip butties sometimes or something to eat.
When do you get chip butties? What day do you get chip butties?
Oh no, well on a Friday. But
that's Fridays, Paul. Fish and chip Fridays.
Sometimes, we have that fish and chip Friday. Sometimes.
One of the better things, though, Tony, is not just that. And I know other veterans organisations and stuff that do fantastic work, but what makes you stand out, Trafford Vets, is not only do you support people from emergency services, but it's the families as well. It's the families of veterans, it's the families of those people that are very welcome, and they come and share their stories and get help. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can't praise them enough. They've given me a lifeline. I was nearly suicidal, I'd say, not far off it. But then coming here, they've just given me confidence. They've given me purpose. They've given me hope of a better future. I've gained friends. I now go to a woodcraft club on a Tuesday night because I like my wood carving. I'm going to have a go on a lathe on Tuesday night and make a bowl or something. And it's all exciting new stuff that I'm learning.
Yeah.
And the guy that I go with, he's a bit of on his own. He's all right. He's married, but he don't go out to the pub and stuff. So he likes to do a bit of woodworking. So I've made a new friend, and he picks me up and we go together. So I'm supporting him as he's supporting me. That's how it works. And I think it's fantastic.
Like you said, mate, it's that camaraderie again, isn't it?
That's it, yeah.
And he can talk to you about things that nobody else would understand.
That's it, yeah. He's battled with cancer and all sorts of things. So, he can offload sometimes and tell me stuff that he may not want to tell other people. And I think it's good that we can do that.
Do you know what, mate? I think that's a great way to end it, because it's really, really positive. And I know, the road's not always straight and everything, but you're with a good group of people there. Listen, mate, that was really, really, thanks for everything that you've done.
No, thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
No, Tony, that was incredible. From somebody who told me the other day he had no stories to tell, you've just not stopped for an hour and a half.
Must be the tablets.
I
don't drink. I've teetotal for 10 years, 11 years. So.
You can let him out of the room now.
Yeah, I've gone now.
Cheers, Tony. That was brilliant, mate.
Cheers, Tony.
I'll see you soon, fella.
Thanks for listening to That Great Mank Pod. Please do us a massive favour and subscribe to this podcast. And if you can, leave us a review on iTunes. Both are a massive help, enabling us to promote the people and the great causes we champion to a much bigger audience. If you want to get in touch, give us a follow on Twitter at Great Mank Pod and drop us a DM. Cheers.
You're listening to That Great Mank Pod, Greater Manchester's community podcast. Top one, kid.